Welcome back to my kitchen once again. For today's video, I'm going to go over some basic cutting techniques that I use on a pretty consistent basis within my recipes, and some that are just good to have in your back pocket in case you have a culinary light bulb moment that's just outside of your comfort zone. This video will hopefully serve as a good reminder for the rest of the year on how you can stay creative in the kitchen in very simple ways, and it all starts with a sharp blade. So let's get into it. First things first, you need to make sure you have a good knife that you're comfortable with and that you know how to sharpen. Depending on the usage, my knife tends to lose its sharp edge about every 2 weeks. It's not necessarily a dull knife, but it just doesn't operate the same as when it's sharp. To be clear, some knives need some serious work while others just need a little TLC. My knives tend to be in the TLC maintenance category unless they've been really neglected. For these knives, you want to give them a refresher with a whetstone from time to time. These sharpening stones need to be soaked in water before using and come in various grades. But the ones I use most are 1000 to 1500 grit for resurfacing and a 2000 to 2500 grit for finishing. Anything lower than 1000 grit is usually for refurbishing or repair, and anything over 2500 grit is used for polishing and ultra razor edges. Hard to maintain, but is insanely sharp if you have the stamina. It takes just about 5 minutes per side to rejuvenate my knife. Starting with 1000 grit, you want to stay at a 15 to 20 degree angle and work evenly across the blade, making sure to not forget the tip of the blade, which is very easy to do. Rinse your whetstone and knife before flipping your blade to the other side, then spend the last minute or two on both sides finishing the edge on the 2500 grit whetstone for a very sharp and shiny blade. In case you're interested, my custom knife is available to purchase and the link will be in my description box, so check that out. Now it's time to start cutting. Now, I do have a bunch of different vegetables to get through, but I'm going to start off with cabbage preparations. For the first one, you want to carefully remove the outermost leaves, making sure to keep them fully intact. You only have about 4 to 5 of these in each head of cabbage, so take your time. Next, cut some of the stem portion off of the leaves so that they become more flexible. Then you're going to blanch them in boiling water for 30 seconds and cool them down in a bowl of cold water. Pat the excess moisture off, and you now have a really nice vessel for stuffings of all sorts that is an absolute stunner. Next up, we're going to make large wedges, which require the root to be intact. You can cut each half into 3 to 4 proper sized wedges, and these can be used for grilling, pan frying, or whole roasting. They can really stand out with rich marinades and sauces all on their own if you're a real cabbage lover. Another great way to prepare cabbage, in my opinion, is finely shredded. It's probably the most popular with cabbage, but not just sliced, but a really elegant shaved cabbage can amp up fresh coleslaws, taco toppings, tortas, sauerkraut, or sauteed until super tender. Now it's time to go through our diced cuts. Just make sure you take time to get each cut as straight and as even as you can for maximum symmetry. Remove odd edges and square up your stacks before each cut is the key takeaway here. This is the time to be as picky as you want. The most commonly used dices in cooking are small, medium, and large. Small dices are usually used to elevate sauces, dressings, fillings, along with cold and hot appetizers, generally speaking. A medium dice is typically focused on stuffings, risottos, refined chopped salads, soups, consommes, and mosaics. Large diced ingredients tend to be geared for roasted or glazed side dishes, pickling, croutons, stews, braises, and anything that really screams big and bold. Next on the list is celery. Their shape is typically used for batons or long strips, but they also have a really unique shape to them that can be highlighted by simply peeling the outer fibers and cutting them on a sharp angle. It yields these little boomerang-like shapes that, once they've been blanched and cooled, turn into these little emerald-looking pieces that are great for fresh fish and seafood dishes, as well as roasted chicken preparations. Celery is also a great way to freshen up delicate marinades, sauces, and dressings using a cut called brunoise. Essentially, this is a very fine diced product that allows the ingredient to be easily and elegantly absorbed into the recipe. Just make sure you're very picky with the thickness, even stacking, and those pesky odds and ends throughout your cutting. This cut is specifically useful in a mignonette sauce for oysters. Now it's time for some carrots. Here I'm going to make cuts called rondelles, which are just even, round, chunky cuts. These are really nice in elevated stews, roasts, and braises in particular, especially if you shave the edges with a peeler. They almost look cartoon-like, which is really great for the presentation of the dish. Next is one of my favorite cuts because of how easy and presentable it is. This is called a roll cut. Just start with an angled cut, roll the carrot, and continue cutting alternating angles after each roll. You'll end up with these edgy cuts that are crazy easy to knock out and look great in just about anything you put them in. Probably my most go-to root vegetable cut. As much as I love my knife, there are a few other tools that can help you in expanding your cutting repertoire, and these are my go-to cutting devices when I want to get really creative. Technically, they all fall under the mandolin category, but each has their own specialty. The most common of them all is the Japanese mandolin. Typically is used for consistent, precise slices, great for layer presentations, rolls, wraps, and much, much more. After that is the spiralizer or turning mandolin, which creates incredible thin strands that are great for frying vegetable noodles, salads, and whatever else you can dream up. I typically love using this with potatoes in a variety of different ways. And finally, we have the vegetable sheeter. This is pretty much used in a similar fashion to the regular Japanese mandolin, but is much faster at turning out large sheets of starchy hardened vegetables. Great for layered presentations that are otherwise tedious with the basic Japanese mandolin. It's also really great for a variety of roll-ups that can be fried, roasted, or seared for a really elevated, edgy presentation. Cutting techniques are a great way to reignite the passion for recipe creation or alteration, and it doesn't have to be so tedious in the beginning. These are just a few tips and tricks that I've been using the last 20 years in the kitchen, from Michelin-starred restaurants all the way to my kids' lunch plate, that make just enough of an impact that's worth putting the time into. If you all enjoyed the video, please hit that share and like button, drop a comment if you'd like to share some tips or tricks yourself, and subscribe for more tutorials like this. Until next time, stay creative in the kitchen, and I'll see you in my next video. Later, everybody.